So he takes her to his home, his plane, and he has like his little lair. It's
Okay, but the fact that he has that entire plane to himself, like he's really lucky.
He's the Little Mermaid. He collects.
Yeah, human
He's
stuff
Ariel.
because he wants to be human.
Yeah.
And only love can make him human.
Ariel.
Ariel. Only love can give him a soul.
Oh my God.
Like Little Mermaid.
Wow.
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 Wow. Theme music.
Theme music, we've got it. You want it? We've got it.
Yeah, we don't know if you even wanted it, but you know what? You keep getting it.
You keep getting it, baby. Welcome back to Not My Fantasy, the show where we talk about fantasy films and the lore that inspired them. I'm Cullen.
And I'm Hannah.
And I'm wearing this shirt for the second, if not the third time on this podcast.
It's like a clown shirt.
Yeah, I got it. It has Alice in Wonderland on the back, I think.
Oh.
Yeah. Today we have a very special guest. My friend and coworker who people assume is my sister or cousin, and whose sister works with my college roommate, former guest of the pod, despite us not meeting till Los Angeles. We have Laurel here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Some serious lore about Laurel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our lives are connected. We also are from Michigan, both from Michigan. Fairly close towns. Never met.
Both were connected to independent Christian films.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Catholic lore.
Catholic upbringing, Catholic lore. Yeah.
Wow.
Red hair.
Yeah.
We fully convinced.
Mine more prominent.
Yeah. We fully convinced one of your neighbors that I was your brother at your birthday.
On my birthday, one of my neighbors at one point was like, "So where did your brother go?" And I'm like, "Cullen, the bathroom." And he was like, "Is he not your brother?" And I was like, "No." And I actually had my two sisters at the party, so I think that confused him because especially when I'm like quite intoxicated, I just call Cullen brother.
Yeah.
Like, where's brother?
She's in my phone as Laurel's sister.
Yeah.
Aw, love that.
Yeah, we're talking about a movie that Laurel's actually a big fan of, very excited to talk about. Our final installment of this year's Supernatural Romance Month. We're talking about Warm Bodies from 2013. The same year as Beautiful Creatures.
That's
really?
crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the CGI level, no, I would say it's probably a little bit better in this movie, but because there's not as much.
Yeah, it's pretty like, and it's not the
in.
focus. Yeah, nothing about the CGI took me out of it.
Because I was gonna say, wow, I can't believe those movies came from the same year. But yeah, this is movie 3 out of 4 featuring corpse fuckers. Which we
didn't realize it was the theme.
We discussed this on a whole separate podcast.
Glee Aggressive.
Shut that up. Yeah, Glee Aggressive. So we went back to our Glee roots. We watched season 5, episode 15, Bash with those pals. And that's where we discovered, oh wait, 3 out of 4 of our movies over here on this pod, corpse fucker movies. Wow.
Yeah.
So
truly.
Something's wrong with humanity.
I think something's right with humanity.
Bold take. In a month of bold takes.
Yes.
If Nicholas Hoult is always the corpse, I'm always going to be there.
You know, I did kind of make a comment and I felt bad for making it, but I was like, oh, isn't it so great? Like, he didn't even have to go into hair and makeup. He just showed up to work.
You take that back, Hannah.
I also felt really bad because we'll talk about it, but in the scene where he's basically coming alive, I was like, okay, I can't tell. Is he still a zombie or is he Nicholas Hoult now? Like, I'm very confused.
Nicholas Hoult
genuinely confused.
Doesn't he play Elle Fanning's husband in The Great? Isn't he King
Yes.
Peter?
Yes, he is.
He was in Renfeld.
Yes.
He be working.
He's also Hank in X-Men First Class.
Yes.
He's
Okay.
Beast. He's the
Yeah.
Beast.
Oh, wow.
He's very versatile.
He's extremely versatile.
But this role is one of those where I'm like, he just kind of really blends in. He also, what was it? Was it the Pinocchio movies? The bad Pinocchio movie we watched, where I was like, those two henchman characters somehow, even though their faces are opposite, they both look like Nicholas Hoult. Hannah, insert that into this because it is absolutely true.
Oh,
Yeah. That's all I can think about now.
I think if Nicholas Hoult was like in the room with us, you'd feel bad about saying that.
I feel terrible. I really do. But I was like, oh, but it's kind of funny. But I also think that like he is a very good actor. Like I forgot he was British in this movie. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of lines, but
well, his voiceover and stuff.
His voice.
That's true. The grunting. I was like,
yeah, it was
British
mostly
to
grunting.
me.
Yeah, this movie came out in 2013. But this is my first time seeing it. I remember being interested in seeing it, but this is my first time. I mean, this is one of the most aggressively late 2000s, early 2010s movies I've ever seen. It felt like being railed by Zooey Deschanel and Scott Pilgrim at the same time.
What a way to go.
Well, yeah, not a bad idea. Like not like it's like very aggressively early 2010s. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that's not charming.
Yeah. I have seen this movie. I saw it. I don't think I saw it in theaters. I think I saw it like after it came out on like DVD. God, that's such an old thing to say.
Yeah.
But and I remember watching it and being like, okay, like it was fine.
Yeah.
Love it. But I was like, yeah, it was fine. I didn't have any expectations for it this time around because I was mostly trying to remember, okay, well, what happens? I don't remember. So, yeah.
It is after watching Twilight and Beautiful Creatures, and then even Lisa Frankenstein, which is a significant quality increase over those two movies, but is also like wild unhinged. This is just like a very stable, competent storytelling experience.
It was refreshing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that was Shakespeare. It was
that's the bard, grandfather gay himself.
Yep, the first LGBT.
The first LGBT plus. Yeah.
I saw this movie from I think Redbox when it first like in 2013.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And I think I rented it from Redbox. Well, I didn't rent it. My uncle rented it, and because I was sleeping over his house, and he's like the cool uncle. And so we were like, "What are we gonna get?" And he was like, "A romance about zombies." And I was like, "Yes, Uncle Mikey." And we rented it, and I was like, "Who's Nicholas Hoult? Like I want a zombie boyfriend." And I was probably, I think, depending on when this came out, I was probably 13. And I did not catch that it was Romeo and Juliet the first time around. Yeah, I did the second time around, but I did not catch it the first time.
I did not until I was talking with Laurel about it. She's like, yeah, it's Romeo and Juliet. And I was like, what? And then it was like all the pieces were slowly coming together.
He's like, actually, I was like, well, it's Romeo and Juliet. And he's like, no. And I was like, yes, Cullen. And he's like, yeah, but it's not like that much of an adaptation. I was like, the balcony scene, the names. He's like, oh no.
Yeah, it is and it's not. Like if you forget that it's zombies, it's probably a little bit easier because the zombie thing is definitely weird. Also, I think we did kind of tease in our last episode about whether or not I would have listened to the book. I did not have time.
You know,
I could not have not only that, but I could not find it at my library. I couldn't find it anywhere for free, the audiobook. And I was like, I am not going to spend $12. I'm so sorry. I already bought.
So sorry, Isaac.
Twilight audiobook.
Yeah,
so that was my sacrifice for this year.
I know it wasn't even that big of a book. Obviously, it was made into a movie, but then I had read that it was like the first in like a trilogy or like a bunch of books. And then I don't think those books exist. So
they exist. So this author has written quite a few in this universe, I guess. but they never really kicked off. And I don't think the movie really kicked off, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's like, but also the movie kind of ends not
But
like on a let's do a sequel.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
ends on like a
it's
we're happy, we're
humanity
satisfied.
saved.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's again refreshing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Orange and Julie are not as iconic as Zed and Addison from the Zombies Disney Channel musical
Get
trilogy.
out of here, Cullen.
That is an
Wow.
iconic couple with several
Disagree.
bops. Some of honestly Disney Channel's best music. Sorry to the High School Musical franchise. So I will make Hannah cover those movies at some point. She is fighting tooth, nail, and claw. But we gotta
Cullen,
someday, as the Zombies fans will know that reference.
I'll just say this. On Mean Girls Day this past year, Cullen sent out like a roast to all of us.
A burn book,
Like a
yeah.
burn book, like
I was on vacation, but I had
basically.
scheduled it, yeah.
I
And
remember
he
that.
included all of like the receptionists and like our people in like our work friend group. And obviously he didn't do himself. And so I wrote back something along the lines of Cullen listens to Radio Disney unironically and does not find anything wrong with it. And
That
I
is
think
seriously the realest roast.
and then also when it was like Spotify Unwrapped, he's like, everyone send your Spotify Unwraps. And then we all sent them. He was like, ooh, don't want to send mine anymore.
I sent mine. The Glee cast was redacted, but then I admitted that was number 3. Glee Boot was still technically going in 2023, so barely.
If that's any indication on if you should include zombies.
Yeah, my top 5 were, I believe, Taylor Swift, Carly Rae Jepsen, Glee cast, Dua Lipa, David Archuleta.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think we should watch Zombies. Just because it's one of 2 Disney Channel musical trilogies about race. And
I think that's too many.
And I think we need to watch both of them and talk about race allegories. And maybe we could include that Will Smith movie, Bright.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that.
Because it's like, I do think they're
interesting.
I think they're very fun. I think they're also interesting in like race allegories, especially like coming from big corporations. But
yeah.
All right. So this is based on Isaac Marion's 2010 novel, written and directed by Jonathan Levine. He directed movies like 50-50 with Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and They Returned for the Night Before. So he's a very like this era of filmmaking, like is his era. It stars Nicholas Hoult, Tessa Palmer, Rob Cordy, Dave Franco, Leo Tipton, Corey Hardrick, and John Malkovich. The budget was $35 million.
Whoa.
Wow.
It came out February 1st, 2013. So that would be
before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, before Valentine's Day, but in time for Valentine's Day and 11 years ago.
Wow. That hurts.
11 years ago?
Yeah. It had a return to box office of 66.4 million and with an additional 50.6 million internationally.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it did well. Reviews were mixed, but like everyone was like, it's cute. But someone said it wasn't as swoon worthy as Twilight.
That person's deeply troubled.
Deeply troubled because nothing about that stilted chemistry and that age gap and that slut shaming was swoon worthy.
I don't want to bash Twilight because I think Cullen did enough of that in your Twilight video. But
and I tried to be open-minded, okay?
You literally started by being like, I'm gonna be open-minded, and then all you said was bad things.
Well, I think he meant he was open-minded when he went to read the book and then was like, I'm closed, I closed down shop.
I respect Kathy Hardwick. I respect Kristen Stewart and the work that she did. I think the movie did a good job with what it was given.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to bash
it's a little late, Cullen.
I do think that R and Julie were like giving and serving what Edward and Bella thought they were serving.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's that like forbidden romance to both of them, but it's forbidden in the sense of like there's no personality happening in Twilight, and then there's I don't really think she has that much of a personality except for love interest, but he has a strong personality. So I think
In
that's
this
why I don't
movie, you
understand.
mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how this could be less swoon worthy when, like, R is a very compelling character.
Yeah.
And
He's
I
very
don't think the
dynamic.
love interest is super compelling, but like, he really like makes the story go, and Bella doesn't.
I also think the power dynamic is that when there's a imbalanced power dynamic, she chafes under it, right? And so there's this idea that this is a relationship of equals. That these are both people roughly around the same age, mentally, you know, like that these physically, like that's how this is happening. And so I think that to me is what I didn't think this was super like steamy, but like why I would root for them as a couple more is the power dynamic stuff, is that it just feels more like a straightforward romance to me.
It's a lot less threatening happening between the love interests.
Yeah.
There's not so much like, I could eat you. He's like, I don't want to eat you.
I want to eat you.
I think I think my favorite part is that every time that Art is creepy, he's like, I'm being creepy.
Yes, he's very aware of it.
And Edward's like,
Edward's like,
hey, if I sit in your windowsill and kill only spiders for the next like 11 hours.
The difference is R is like, I don't want to kill you. And Edward is, I want to kill you. I want to kill you so bad. And that's so hot to you. But it's not.
It's not.
That's not how this movie is. So yeah, I think this movie is more swoon worthy. Screw that person.
Yeah, it's no Zed and Addison, but so if we're
Cullen.
All right, so if we go to the lore, the backstory, so this is mainly we're referencing an article in The Atlantic called "The Tragic Forgotten History of Zombies" by Mike Mariani. Now, spoilers for our future, we are going to spend a lot of time on zombies in the future. Not necessarily the zombies I want, but so
well, I mean, we don't know exactly.
We don't know exactly. Yeah. So that's why we're gonna do a very brief touch up on zombies. And we briefly, back when we did Black Cauldron, we felt like we had to dive into every second of lore that it could appear in a movie. We talked about zombies with the Undead Army. So some of this might be a more fleshed out version of what we referenced in Black Cauldron, which is still a very interesting movie to talk about. So definitely still recommend that episode. But so zombie lore kind of begins in modern day Haiti, when it was the French colony of Saint Dominique. The enslaved people believed that you would go back to Africa upon your death. It was like your afterlife, and being a zombie was seen as like punishment for dying of suicide, because you would be still bound to that world of enslavement and not free. And there's debate over like, was this slavers pushing that narrative to discourage people, or was this their communities? Complicated. And I want to, we'll point this out later. All right, so no, we're going to point it out now. Okay, so slavery has come up a lot this month in Supernatural Romance Month, which we did not expect. Whether it's Mormon teachings on race, the lost cause ideology of the Confederate South. And I'm like, is this because, if we're talking about horror, and we've done a lot of supernatural romance in the horror genre, is this because like slavery and colonialism was one of the greatest horrors of our age? Something that's like impacted people for generations? Is it because this was at a time when white Europe was seeing itself as more logical, irrational, and enlightened? So for it to go to find something supernatural, it had to be among like the African, foreign, unknown, other magical, like superstitious. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, but I just was like, I did not expect to be like, let's do supernatural romance month, talk about Twilight and some other movies, and then to like be talking about slavery so much.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not expect to be talking about slavery during Supernatural Romance Month. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. I think we'll talk about for our next month, like there's a lot of like, why is this story like the story that everyone retells again and again? And so I think it's one of those questions that you can come up with theories with, but there's no definitive answer.
There's definitely like for romance, there's a link between power dynamics and romance. And then when it comes to adding horror into that, what's one of like the biggest power dynamics? Servitude,
Yeah.
and so there's some really interesting links there.
Even after the Haitian Revolution, post this institution of slavery in Haiti, zombies kind of become part of voodoo religion, which we've talked about a few times, definitely in the Beautiful Creatures episode. It's come up before. So, but as kind of the evil side, like the sorcery and necromancy, the things that like good people were not supposed to be engaging with. So very different than we're talking about like Burn Semity and Papa Legba and Erzulie, like different side. And these evil sorcerers would use magic to raise corpses to act as servants or slaves for their various nefarious needs. So this kind of is like the anxieties of the institution of slavery were still present, that kind of fear of being kept beyond the grave, and still present also because various factions in Haiti would try and reinstate slavery. So it wasn't like a thing in the past, like people act like. And then that the zombie made its way to Hollywood. It infected.
Yeah, and it's so when we're talking about it, like literally it was the word zombie in this Haitian lore.
Yeah,
And
that's where the
then
word zombie. It's not like Walking Dead things have always been around.
yeah.
Like ghouls, I believe, are specifically like Arabic or like from 1001 Nights, like that kind of.
And so like when it got to Hollywood, so when it sort of really like popped off, Night of Living Dead, like they were ghouls. That's what Romero called them. But I guess, if ghouls is also a different thing. So it's this really weird thing where it's like co-opting this word that has a very different historical context. And that's just, yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this with like Lord of the Rings and like the word elf and like what
Yeah.
elf means, all the different things fairy can mean. And you can see when you see the word zombie that it's different from a different language, right? Than a lot of our Nordic, like elf, dwarf, troll, like it just, you can see by the feel. But it is, I feel like zombies definitely, the term came from the enslaved community, though I'm sure that people in power were willing to use the story
Yeah.
to control. So it's yeah, that's just kind of, it's like I don't want to, the French do not get to claim zombies. I'm going to say that now. But it's like I'm sure you were willing to work with that story to scare people. It's kind of shed a lot of what it initially meant. So initially the zombies referenced, materialism, consumer society. So in a way that in Haiti and Saint Dominique, they're referring to slavery as something that like strips you of your humanity. This was being like like materialism, like just turns you into a zombie. You're just going about your daily life. But in a post Y2K world, we really got into that post-apocalypse. And this is where we get World War Dead, The Walking Dead, World War Z, Zombieland. The zombie apocalypse becomes just like a staple of pop culture. We used to ask in college all the time, like, if the zombie apocalypse started, who would you take at this table?
Oh.
Yeah. I got picked a lot because I had good shoes.
We would always do like, who are you kicking off your island? And everyone would be like, Laurel. And I'd be like,
oh,
I think I'm an easy target.
Oh.
I'm sorry about
Anyway.
that.
Yeah, I feel really bad.
Yeah, people would pick me, but I'm like, I'm useless. I'd probably be a.
I was gonna say, if they're picking you for your shoes, I'm like, but what else do you bring? Like,
I can
we've been
run
friends a long
fast.
time. True. Okay,
I can
there you go.
run.
You're bringing stuff to the table.
I'm pretty strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of me feels like I would end up just being like some kind of like courtesan.
Oh, well, we all have to serve a purpose, Cullen.
Yeah, very much like Triangle of Sadness, what goes on in that movie. So does the zombie apocalypse take zombies from being a horror to a fantasy? Is it your fantasy? Let's find out. So like the zombie apocalypse like resets things. So the mundanity of regular life, all the
Mhm.
strictures, credit scores, LinkedIn, it's gone. So
Thank God. Woo.
thank God. But I mean, that's kind of it. It's like it all becomes about survival, strength, freedom. Can you run fast? Can you lift
Yeah.
things? You know,
Yeah.
you're empowered to make choices.
Becomes a
You have freedom, a
meritocracy in some ways.
meritocracy.
Yeah.
And this, we talked a lot about power fantasies, especially with like beautiful creatures,
Mhm.
and a little bit with Twilight. But so then everyone else becomes a mindless body antagonist for you to enact violence on because it's just going after you,
Yeah.
right? So it is kind of an individualist fantasy.
Yeah. And well, don't we just live in a very individualistic society?
Don't we? This was what always got me about. So my my college roommate, you know, I would watch Once Upon a Time, and then right after he'd watch Walking Dead, shows our two personalities. And it was the Frozen season, so it was rough at the time. But
Ooh.
yeah. But I never understood that people like society collapses and everyone immediately tries to murder each other, which I guess after the toilet paper COVID thing. Maybe I
I
do
think
believe
it makes
that.
sense. I mean, like, I know we're talking about zombies in a fantasy discussion, but obviously, like, of all of the fantasy creatures, like, zombies are never like existing in a fantasy land. It's like America, but
Yeah.
it's the apocalypse. I
Yeah.
absolutely, after watching The Last of Us, believe that it will happen. It's already happening to the bugs with the cordyceps or whatever, the little fungi. It's
Uh-huh.
that exact fungi from The Last of Us has already created zombies in like ants.
Love
So
that.
it's gonna happen.
And that's sort of another thing is
Yeah.
the sort of how a zombie becomes a zombie now. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
different in our current zeitgeist.
Hmm.
Um,
It's
where
biological.
biological, it's about the fear of biological weapons or uncontrollable biological warfare, or even
Nuclear
just
blasts.
Yeah.
it's about the body, the physical body getting sick. There's also the fear of, creating viruses and, uncontrollable medicine. So it's it's really very, very different, how we took a concept about slavery
Yeah.
Hmm.
and turned it into something that's about getting sick and infecting the
Yeah.
world and destroying the world, when it was about destroying individuals and souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I didn't even connect like my COVID experiences till we were having this discussion about like what it was sort of like to be like, is this the apocalypse? Like, is everything
Mm,
Yeah.
gonna, but like we still have to clock into work every day?
Yeah.
yeah.
And why the toilet paper? Why was everyone
Why?
shitting so much?
Why?
Well, just get a
Why did we
bidet.
yeah, why did we fear so much of all the things that we needed? We were like, but what will I wipe my butt with?
Yeah. It's like we don't care about canned food.
Yeah, and it wasn't like what will I feed
Because
myself with? It was
yeah,
like
it's
what will I
like,
use after my poo?
I mean,
yeah.
to be fair, I'd rather be hungry than have a poopy butthole. I may
Well,
regret that. I may
Wipe it.
regret saying that, but like,
I,
that's the worst feeling in the world.
I just, I think we're ready to move on.
So let's talk about Romeo and
Yeah.
Juliet.
Yeah,
Uh,
Mm,
I
absolutely.
I definitely pulled this from Wikipedia. I'm just gonna be honest that I got this. So Romeo and Juliet, like many of Shakespeare's works, stretches back to antiquity. He did not an original. He did an
mhm,
adaptation. We stand an adaptive queen. The plot is based on an Italian tale written by Matteo Bandello and translated into verse as The Tragical History of Romeus and Juliet by Arthur
mm,
Brooke in 1562. And it was retold in prose in The Palace of Pleasure by William
mm,
Painter in 1567. Shakespeare borrowed heavily, like from both sources. He expanded the plot. He added Mercutio. He added Paris. It's believed to be have written like between 1591 and 1595. So somewhere like, let me think, like
It's a long time before Chicken Little,
Yeah,
Cullen.
it's 410 years before Chicken Little. Usually I write it in the notes ahead of time, but the text of the first quarter version was poor quality. Later, they found a better edition. And so you see, like, R is Romeo, Julie is
Right.
Juliet. We have Nora is the nurse. We have M is Mercutio. We have Paris,
Is
you
Perry.
know,
His name is
Perry,
Perry. Yeah,
the
not Peter.
platypus. Yeah, I
Yeah,
put
Perry
Peter
the
in a.
yeah, and then I was like, it's Perry.
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember his name, just the Franco brother.
Yeah,
At
James
one
Franco.
point, she just says pear.
Yeah, and I hated that.
What like a nickname?
Pear.
It's just.
It's like
I
calling
don't like
someone.
it.
He's calling him daddy in French.
Oh, well, there you go.
All right, so let's get into the plot of Warm Bodies.
Let's do this.
Absolutely.
We
I have
start.
exactly 12 notes, and
I have 1,200.
So
I love this movie.
I'm glad you love this. I'm glad we had, because I think we just kind of randomly were like, oh, we should do Warm Bodies. So I'm glad we found a guest who was like, no, I'm passionate about this.
I really like this movie. I think it has so much heart, and I think like it's pretty common to do like a Shakespeare adaptation, and like Romeo and Juliet especially is like one of the biggest ones. And although there's a lot of adaptations of Romeo and Juliet that I like I'm not going to say this one's like better than like West Side Story, but I just think it's like Romeo and Juliet is really about like pain and suffering, and how funny to make a zombie movie about like a guy who just wants to feel, even if it's feeling pain. That's like,
yeah,
I think Willie would have loved this.
He would have.
I think Willie would have loved it. I think he would have been along for the ride.
Yeah, if there's any author who I feel like would enjoy all the numerous adaptations of their work, I feel like it is Shakespeare. I think he would just be like, this is fun. Because that,
he's like,
because he's like, I also love to adapt stuff.
Yeah. He's like, what's a zombie? And he's like, oh, okay, like a Revenant, cool. Great, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So we meet R. He's in an airport. I'm surprised. I thought, is this our first one where the supernatural creature is the lead? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's our second with a male protagonist.
Yes.
I thought this would be a lot more female protagonists.
Look at us balancing.
Equality.
Title
IX. So
but yeah, so it's like there's like a whole colony living in this airport. Yeah. And which is interesting. I like airports. That would be me.
I love airports. Wow, I also think it's funny that some of them are like still doing their job.
Yeah.
Others are just wandering around.
Yeah. And is going back to how you were saying, like, oh, the zombie apocalypse, it gets sort of like the mundane aspects of, no, it doesn't. Not in this universe.
No, they're wandering around. He's like, at one point he's like, I'm lost, but he's like, no, I literally have not been in this part of the airport before.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he explains kind of how zombies work. Like he sort of has thoughts. He's not sure if anyone else does. Yeah. He references the bonies.
Oh yeah.
Have we used the phrase "oh bony" on this podcast before? Or am I pulling that from something else?
What?
I don't think so.
I feel like something about the Horned King was bony, but I don't.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. But that like eventually all your humanity is gone with your flesh, and you become these skeletal, bony beings. Yeah.
Don't get me started on the bonies. Probably my least favorite part of the movie was the bonies.
Yeah, they're the obligatory big bad.
Yeah.
I just think
they're not interesting. Like,
they're not scary. I think this movie had a moment where they were like, are we gonna make the bonies scary? Is this a horror movie? Like, are we gonna have really scary scenes? And I don't know that they ever decided on that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think they ever made a choice. There was some scenes where I was like, if the CGI was a little better, I could be afraid. But why is it that every time that they pan to the bonies, they're like standing in like NPC mode? And like it's only as you get closer to them, they start chasing you?
Because they're NPCs. There you go.
NPCs.
You cracked it.
I think my thing with the bonies is the bonies provide a thing for people to fight together, to unite in the conflict. They are the
Yes.
other.
Yes.
And but
That
at the
was
same
successful. But
yeah.
they're not like every time they were on the screen, I think they were on the screen more than John Malkovich, and I wasn't for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't look scary, and the way that people interact with them in scenes is also like, we'll talk about it later when she's like fighting off just like the regular zombie people. I'm like,
Yeah.
this choreography is not great, and it just doesn't get better with the beings that aren't there. So it's like,
I think the movie could have had to do some difficult thing where if we talk about zombies as a race allegory, hashtag justice for Zed and Addison, but when you have a race allegory, movies then have to come up with a solution to said race allegory, and it is almost never adequate. I can't think of one off the top of my head that was adequate, right? And so by having just like the Zombie Plus, that they have the premium subscription zombies,
they need the point of no return for these creatures to prove that these versions of the zombies are still savable.
Yeah, that there's like they can get better, they can get worse, they can change, but also then we have something to fight. And so then we can unite over a common enemy, and we don't have to be like have some kind of cringe reason why they all suddenly get along.
And I even think it was still a little cringe. They're like, yeah, we're all gonna do, and I was like, I don't know if it would be this fast, but okay.
Yeah.
That's getting ahead of ourselves.
We meet his best friend M. They grunt words at each other.
They're sitting at the bar too.
Yeah.
The airport bar, which
great.
made me laugh. Yeah.
I think he is one of the most felt characters. I think he has great lines. It's also funny to me that he speaks so much better than R. Like he was forming full sentences, and I was like, keep up, R.
Get it together. Because they just kind of grunt like food. He's like, go to city. So they're gonna go. They're gonna go feed. They're doing their march. Their equivalent of going to the ball, of Romeo and his friends going to the ball at the Capulet Manor.
Okay, yeah.
It really does follow the plot of Romeo and Juliet pretty closely.
And there's we see the world inside the wall. We talk about the future liberals one, this is the future Republicans one, right? Like we're all in a wall. Everyone's unhappy and mean. Even people in relationships actively hate each other. They don't actually hate each other, but we haven't reached full.
We'll talk about it.
And so we meet Perry.
The platypus.
The platypus. He can only be a platypus to me, which means
Dave Franco.
2 episodes of Supernatural Romance Month have also referenced Phineas and Ferb.
Phineas and Ferb was great. I love Phineas and Ferb.
Wait, what was the other Phineas and Ferb reference?
That it's been around long. It was on longer than the Confederacy was around. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
So they're like, okay, we have to go outside the wall. Like it's like a video game, like especially one of those video games they have at like arcades, where it's like, all right, you're starting. It's like go outside the wall and like go get the meds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the meds for? It's just like it's not like to cure the zombies.
No,
stuff.
it's because they're out of
they
supplies.
just need medicine.
Yeah,
supplies.
She wants to cure zombies. She has hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Perry doesn't. Perry's battled good old Doofenshmirtz too many times. And he doesn't have hope anymore. They're getting the meds. Nora's like, take antidepressants. Which Nora is the most 2013 name. I just gotta say it.
Yeah.
It is an infinite playlist of a name.
It is.
Yeah. So they're there, and then the zombies show up because they're like, I thought I heard something. And they come in, and he's instantly like, she's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
love
this
at first sight.
zombie. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because she didn't pull her hair back to go on this mission. It's down, it's ready. We got a great comment on Percy Jackson discussing the details of like when this person would have their hair down or up in
Yep.
situations. So I
I
don't
love
want to,
them going off in the comments. We love that.
yeah, like do
I
not
wanna
want to
hear
give
it.
Julie too much shade because I loved the nuance of that comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it's a zombie fight, right? There's a guy playing. Okay, wait. I forgot. So there's a guy playing video games, right?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, sorry,
On
I
his
gotta get to
phone.
the next level. And I'm like, with what internet?
Yeah.
With
Well,
what
Also,
cloud?
with what electricity?
the whole city pisses me off a little bit because I just think nothing was established. For one thing, it's
Mhm.
obviously a city, but not a very big one. Is it the last city? And why are there tents and then also full buildings at the same time?
She lives in like a big ass house. Everyone
Yeah.
else is in a tent.
Right, because
Isn't this like
her dad's
essentially
like,
like New York?
I
Because
don't
the
know.
wall is like
It's not that big
separating
though.
Manhattan, like the part of like Upper Manhattan and the park, Central Park, right?
Yeah, I
Isn't
think
that
so.
that's what it looks like at
I
the end,
think
at least?
I think you're right. It doesn't, I don't know what they were doing. I think they threw a bunch of apocalypse like looking
Yeah.
things into one soundstage and then
Yeah.
they just
Yeah.
were like, that looks good. But like, why are people living in tents and then other people just living in apartment buildings?
Yeah. What
And then
is the whole social setup of this world? But that's the
yeah,
thing is we don't get a social world, which I think is interesting because that means this movie is not about the apocalypse of the zombies, but it
yeah,
is about the zombies themselves and the
yeah.
changing. So in a way, I think that's effective, but it is,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a lot of questions.
I have questions, but I will say this again, as I learned from that Beauty and the Beast remake, something that's better not to know. Don't
Yep.
tell me.
I don't think it was better not to know in this sense though, because John Malkovich is then a bad guy. He's like the government. But
Hmm.
like I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on with
I
that
d-
guy.
Yeah. What is
I don't know
he
what
fighting
political
for?
party he is. I don't know
True.
anything about him.
That man is a libertarian.
You could
Not
argue.
John Malkovich necessarily, but his
Yeah.
character.
I do
I
feel
don't know
like
what's
it.
going on. I don't understand the technology. I don't understand why they're like eating like sand, like and like things from the ground as food. But then like at one point the nurse like Nora plugs in her like iPod. Like
Yeah.
I
It
just
is
don't get it.
confusing.
It is. I think I do think it could have been a little more consistent. I think it was focused on the romance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's to the movie's strength. Like that's what's
Yeah.
charming about it. And it's just like apocalypse aesthetic. And it's like
Yes.
it could have made more sense. I'm not saying it shouldn't have made more sense,
Yeah.
but I do think they focused on like why we're here, right? Girl
Yes.
X zombie, zombie X girl, you know?
Yeah.
Like the other stuff could have been more explained. Like, but it really is even more so. I feel like Romeo and Juliet is much more Juliet's story. This is very much
Yeah.
Romeo's story. And so she's just kind of she's love interest, you know.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot. We had enough. We could have gotten, but like I buy their romance, right? So it's like it focuses, it's like we're doing a romance and the other stuff is set dressing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. You know, I don't want to have like expansive lore that you're gonna do another movie on and gaslight me if I can remember it or not.
But it
Yeah.
does also, I think, take away from the potential charm of the romance in that they're just doing normal teenager things, but there's also apocalypse. So that makes me really like, but okay, you don't have electricity on this plane. How are you playing music? You know, like I
Yeah.
feel like it could have been more
Mm,
clever in playing with like, okay, well, how do they create charm in this
Right.
apocalypse world?
Just some decisions
yeah.
could have been
So,
made.
because otherwise
Yeah.
it is super 2013. If they
Yeah.
had done a little bit less iPods, like classic iPods, and more like, I don't know,
Like
it just,
little
Yeah.
clever
the technology
things.
stuff did
Yeah.
kind of throw me off
Yeah. When
from like
Yeah.
getting into the charm.
But I really
when
like I like the music in the plane when he's playing records because he's literally communicating through music. Like at
Yeah.
one point she's like, "How long do I have to stay here?" And then he just puts on the record of Patience by Guns N' Roses. And that's funny. I think
that
that's
is
funny.
that is funny and again so 2013. Like the
Yeah.
Yes.
records, I was like, this is so yeah. I mean, I do think when you think of like cute little things in the Little Mermaid remake of all things where she does the thing with the lips, like that's a
Yes.
very
Yeah.
like a small little detail that I think this movie does rely on the 2013 tech, like that kind of
Yes.
aspect more than
Yeah.
it needed to.
Yeah.
But again, it didn't pull me out. Like now that you point this out, I'm like,
Now
where
that
did they get
Yeah.
that
Now that I'm
electricity?
thinking
It didn't
about
pull
it,
me
yeah.
out entirely. It just, when it came to the city and like they wanted to do like, okay, now we're talking about the zombie apocalypse and like the plot of like action movie, I was like, but like, what do you
why?
mean you have an underground like tunnel like place with all these big jeeps, John Malkovich? Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
True. So he then eats Perry's brain. He eats that sweet
Because
Dave
Perry
Franco
shoots
noggin.
him.
Yeah.
Like, he's
Yeah.
like looking at her. He's like, oh, wow. And then
Right.
boom, he gets shot. And then he attacks Perry.
Yeah.
Which
It
is
was
defense. It's kind of
It
a
was-
combo of the death of Tybalt, right? Where
Yes,
Romeo
yes,
kills
it is.
Tybalt. Yeah. But
It is.
Perry is also
Romeo also
Paris.
kills Paris.
Does he?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
So he be munching on that sweet Dave Franco noggin, and he
Puts it in his pocket. A la,
Save for
it
later.
reminded me of the tot scene from
Napoleon
Dynamite.
That it gave me, what was that, 2005 vibes
wow.
too.
I thought you were
Yeah,
gonna say the penis from Lisa Franklin.
Sure, let's go there too. Yeah.
So
That's hilarious.
he gets all his memories. He sees him as a child. He sees him in school following for Julie. He sees the apocalypse happening. He kind of sees Perry descend from the sweet love and romance with Julie into darkness, descending.
Is this where he learns that his father just turned into a zombie and got shot, or is that later?
Yeah, I think
I was gonna say
he hits the brain a few times.
Yeah,
he trips on the brain later.
It's like a little drug.
So this first time is literally just like he falls in love with Julie through Perry's memories in this moment.
Yeah.
And then it evolves later.
I think he also kind of falls in love with Perry too, because he says like really early on in the movie, his like motivations are that he wants to connect and he wants to feel human, and that like he has hope. He's like, because he's like, the Bonies don't have hope. Like, I have hope, but what part of the airport am I in? And he like just keeps going in and out of consciousness, and then he has like a superhuman experience through Perry, and he's like, these people are happy. I want to be these people. I want to know these people.
Yeah.
Which is so okay. Wow, because we talked a lot in most of these previous movies, there has been, but especially I think Twilight Beautiful Creatures, which are closer to the release, right, of this one, is the supernatural romance involves a desire to leave humanity, desire to be separate from, that humans are weak and stupid and small-minded. And this is about what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
Right? Which is kind of what I wanted from Twilight.
It's all about human connection. That's what cures the zombies.
And that's wow.
It's all about like passion and like feeling and like even like really mundane moments and pain, which is
the
what
highs and lows.
About.
Yeah.
The highs, the lows, the dramas and the tension, the forwards and the goalies, not to mention the defensemen. They did a rap at the NHL awards one year that is ingrained in my brain.
A reference that we should know?
It's from the NHL All-Star Awards. So wow, I guess I really I love this movie, I guess.
Isn't it great?
Isn't it great? No, I like honestly, like I enjoyed it. I didn't have negative feelings about it, but now I'm like really like philosophically I jive with this.
Yes, yeah.
It's really a sweet movie, but it's yucky, and that's so fun. I love that. I love that they're like, because I think a lot of people could be like, you know, when something's like too sweet and too sappy, they're like, there was no edge. And like, you can't say that about this movie. He's just eating brain at moments.
Yeah.
He probably smelled yucky.
Terrible.
True.
Yeah. I mean, if
but he looked yummy.
I
know, he looked yummy.
So he saves Julie from the other zombies. He puts gore on her face.
Which is not going to be enough, but whatever.
Sure,
right. Yeah.
It does
that masks her smell of like beating brain or whatever, but it does enough, I guess.
It does enough. I guess sometimes I watch this almost like you're watching like a college theater thing where it was like their assignment was to do Romeo and Juliet, but different than they did with zombies. And like, so some of the stuff that doesn't 100% make sense, I'm like, whatever, I'm here, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
But still, like, even though that wasn't like, it happens a few times, like he does it again, and the zombies like back away from her or whatever. They let her walk with them.
yeah,
But I also think like obviously the zombies didn't want to eat people anyways, so maybe they were just like done with it. They're like, we just fed. It's okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like she smells
kind
enough
of-
bad
yeah.
enough that they're
She
like,
smells
it's not
yucky
worth
enough.
it.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
whatever. I guess we'll eat her later. They're obviously, some of them are like having full conscious streams, but aside from like M and R, the others don't seem to be as much. So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
leave his best friend not to eat her for like 30 minutes.
yeah. And it is like, the logic is consistent. No,
Yeah.
so we get to some places where I was like, I don't know if I buy this logic, but then the movie makes it make sense later. So I was like,
He's a very reliable narrator. Every time I thought for a second, like, how does that work? He'd like kind of explain it in like a very deadpan way. And I was like,
yeah. So he takes her to his home, his plane, and he has like his little lair. It's
Okay, but the fact that he has that entire plane to himself, like
he's the Little
really
Mermaid.
lucky.
He collects.
yeah, human
He's
stuff
Ariel.
because he wants to be human.
Yeah, he's
and only love can make
Ariel.
him human.
Yeah,
Ariel.
Only love can give him a soul.
Oh my God.
Like Little Mermaid.
Wow.
It's also a little Beauty and the Beast. You gotta live in my house.
Her.
And she's like, I'm trapped. But they start to bond, over music. And she's like, when can I leave? And he's like,
he's like, patience.
He's like, it's not safe. It's not safe. And she, and so she's kind of like, what are you? And he's just like,
shrugs a lot.
She's like, you shrug a lot.
He's like, ooh.
So this reminds me of in grad school when I had to do a haunted house in my dorm. Like I helped the student council, whatever they were called, do that, and I had to be like the doorman, and I would just kind of be like, I was like trying to be a zombie. And just like, and like walk people this way. I wasn't very scary. People were like, he's he's this cute little giant man helping me.
You're like, no, Cullen's scary.
Scary, yeah, basically. It's like, that's right. So they're bonding, like he helps get her food because he's like, I'm hungry, because she tries to sneak out and then she's gonna be eaten, and so he's like, no, you have to stay, and she's like, I'm hungry. And then at one point they're driving in a car which still has gas, but then
well, it's implied that R has been driving this car a few times. Because he knows, because look, he's sitting in the car at one point.
He sits, but he doesn't.
He keeps going back to the car.
Well, no, but
he
then
doesn't drive it. He does later.
Does drive. I would assume that's why he could still start it, is because maybe he drove it once or twice.
Oh, well, she's
I did not get that. I thought he just went there because that's when when the first night that she's there, he's like, okay, I know when a girl needs her space, which I appreciated that line. And he goes to the car and he eats the brains.
I'm gonna eat her boyfriend's brain while she takes some time.
And he's tripping, and that's when he discovers that they went out looking for his dad. His dad had been turned, and she shot his dad. Yes, Perry's dad. And so that's sort of where
relationship,
exactly. That's where the relationship splinters. He becomes very stoic, and he's not open to her anymore because she kills his dad essentially.
He turns into her dad, which is just what Paris does in Romeo and Juliet. He just wants to be with like Juliet's dad. He's like, your dad's so cool, and Juliet's like, what? I don't like my dad.
But so, and then eventually they do drive the car, and he's not good at it. And then he's fine at it. They go to park it, and he slams into the other car.
This is where at first I was like, I don't buy this, and then
it's a montage.
But we get there because early in this bonding at one point, we see his heart activate.
Yes.
And it's like he starts on this journey. So at first it's like, how could he suddenly do this? But he is slowly learning to speak more. Like he's speaking in bigger words, like he's communicating more.
Changing inside in his brain, like things are functioning again, which
He's
it
so
is a really
dynamic.
interesting it's a really interesting transformation. Like not only just becoming human again in the feeling
Yeah.
sense, but literally like he's coming back to consciousness. Because it's established they don't dream.
Yeah.
The only way that he
They
can
don't even
capture
sleep.
memories is from the brains. They don't sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also during the montage, the friend M,
He's
they are
noticing.
blasting music in this plane, and he's like, something's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you think it's a fucking concert in there.
Although he does play music earlier in the film,
Yeah.
but ours was not very subtle.
No.
The fact that he brought a human girl back to his airplane.
I mean, he
Yeah.
could barely walk, so like
Yeah.
can only, his brain was only doing so much. So
He
she's
eats the
like,
brains again the last time.
Yeah. And then
This
he
last
sees
time.
himself killing Perry, and he's like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah. He's
But I
like, oh
look
shit.
I
like,
want to relive that.
yeah.
And that's when she escapes again.
Yeah.
Well, I thought
last
that
time.
this time she's like, I need to leave, and he helps her.
No, he
Mm-mm.
wakes up from his fever dream of eating her boyfriend, and he's
And
like, "Where'd she
she's-
go?"
And she's fighting off the zombies,
she's being
M and
surrounded.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
by well, I almost said Mercutio, but I guess his name was Marcus. By M and
Yeah.
the other guys.
and
Yeah.
he steps in, and they're like, what? And he's like, no, don't eat her.
And then M's like, food. And he's like, no.
Yeah. And he's like, eat.
Eat.
And then he lets them leave. And then
And he pulls
they're
up-
running away. Yeah.
They run to Bonies. And
Yeah, the Bonies are
ooh,
pissed.
human. Which also,
Yep.
how come, like, I mean, the zombies walk like horribly, like a zombie, but then like in action, they're like pretty fast. The Bonies, for having no muscle, are way too fast.
Yeah.
What
Sorcery.
magic?
Yeah.
Yep.
The magic of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Willie.
He's such a fairy.
LGBTQ plus.
LGBTQ icon. Invent Oberon Park, baby. So yeah, they're running away. Emma's like, does the classic thing of like, okay, if this is your girl, I'm gonna help you.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, because he's like,
vroom.
I help save or whatever.
Yeah.
And
I
she
like
goes,
her.
who asked you? He goes, like her. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, cringe. It's the moment.
Yeah.
But it worked for me because it was through zombie talk.
Yeah, to see that classic, it is fun to see
Yeah.
like very tropey scenes, but done with zombies. So they be escaping. They are driving out. They go in this car. They get to the suburbs. Which, have any of you seen Anna and the Apocalypse? That's what this reminded me of.
No, I really wanted to see that movie. I have not.
Did we get past the point where they were holding hands?
Don't they?
Well, that's how he well, they're escaping the Bonies, and then there's like a spot like where like a point where they get to the car, and blocking the car is a bunch of zombies, and he
Yes.
holds their hand, and then
And
all the
that
zombies are like, love,
sparks everyone.
Yeah,
And they
they
allow them
remember
to
that.
walk
love
through.
for zombies too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they get in the car
Like
and drive the
Moses.
suburbs.
Which
Yeah.
I love that the concept of love as a magic. We know I'm a love stan, but I love that this might be the first time it appeared in Supernatural Romance Month. Love is a
Actual
magical
love.
force.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because it I remember being like, you'd think it would be in Beautiful Creatures, but it's not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie is literally like love can heal all.
Yeah, we love that. So they go to these suburbs, and she's like, oh, this is the last neighborhood evacuated, which I want to imagine what it's like to be in the last neighborhood evacuated. And they go in this house. She shows him a Polaroid camera. And it's like, it's
So
important to capture
2013.
memories. I was like,
Also, speaking of, I have mine right here, my Polaroid camera.
Oh.
yeah.
Not planned. Forgot it was here until just a second.
And it's so perfect. And then but she is like, okay, let's go up to the bedroom, like I'm gonna
This is
rest.
like the midpoint, pretty much, too.
This is the equivalent of where Romeo and Juliet would sleep together.
Right.
in the
Yeah.
Well, so she
Shakespeare
says,
play.
she's like, you can
You
come
can
up
come
and sleep
sleep
on the floor
on the floor.
because this house
Yeah.
freaks me out.
And he's like,
Oh, okay.
And we get, this is also a very 10s thing where she like takes her clothes off and he watches
She's like,
her.
look away. And he's like,
"Mm?"
And then he does look away after she's already out of her pants. It's like, what's the
Right.
point, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just wanted to get that. He
He
wanted to
looks
capture
away.
that memory.
He looks away before she turns all the way back around. It was kind of cheating.
Yeah.
Far.
And he's like,
He's the back
ooh.
guy. He's into scapulas,
Yeah. He
shoulder
really liked her
blades.
spine showing.
Yeah.
Spine's attached to the brain.
Ooh.
So, but this time when they go to sleep, he has a dream.
Mhm.
He wishes with his heart, and he has a dream.
He has a dream that he's being bullied by Dave Franco.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost said
Nice.
same.
You know, yeah. I gotta give
Same.
Dave
I have that dream all the
Franco
time.
Yeah, he's not that I can read people's auras, but that guy seems so nice, and he plays like dicks the best. He plays
Well, we know his
bullies.
And maybe he has a good muse.
Yeah. He was bullied too.
So yeah, because he's in this sunny dream. They're talking about what would you do if life wasn't like this? And Nora is like, I'd be a nurse.
Yeah, they really spell everything out.
And I still didn't get it.
And then
Dumbass.
And then Julie's like, I would save the zombies. And he's like, I kill zombies.
And he's like, what would you do, R? And he's like,
R can speak.
yeah. And he wakes up and Julie's gone. Because, this is key. Before they go to sleep, he talks about that like he killed Perry.
Yeah. He's like, by the way, I killed.
Yeah, he had his watch, gave it to her, and she's like, I kind of already knew this.
Yeah.
But now I'm like I'm forced to accept that you did this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking because he knows like, oh
Yeah.
no.
It is.
Yeah.
I really like Julia. I think she's very likable. I do think that like she could have had a little bit more to do. It probably also has to do with that R is so dynamic. He literally changes from a zombie to a human. So it's like kind of hard to compete with that. But I don't know that she ever like changed ideologies, ever changed views at any point. Like she was always same thought process the whole time.
She could have had like a more clear goal of how she wanted to cure the zombies.
Yeah.
And like, because like, what if she was literally just like, okay, but what if they're not actually sick? Like, what if it's something else? You know, like, what if she had this like really crazy idea about it, and so then she was able to test it on him. Like, if she was active in trying to heal him instead of just being a girl around this zombie boy, you know? I think like that would have made her more compelling, giving her more action.
There also just wasn't enough of John Malkovich. I'll say it again, people. I think I wanted a little more of that father-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
he
the
was
government?
barely in it.
Is he the government?
I think so. I think she's basically the princess.
She's a princess.
But she's, yeah. And but in the dream, also they reference the word exhume.
Yeah.
Exhume life.
Exhume.
Like you exhume a corpse. So, but he's like, he had a dream. So Julie escapes. And this is almost like the Romeo exile portion, right? Where they're separated.
Yeah.
So she gets back and her dad is like, okay, like he makes sure that they don't trust her. They're like, you're not infected, okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, zombies.
Do the COVID test.
Yeah.
Or head check.
Zombies are gathering, bonies are gathering, because when R gets back to M and his people, they're like, the bonies are mad. Like people are remembering things. M is getting memories of his wife.
Yes.
Because the holding hands.
Sweet.
They see the holding hands like image. It's like they just notice it now, and then like he turns to another guy. He's, do you feel that? Do you feel it?
You're just always rooting for.
And then you see their hearts starting to beat again, like they're coming back to life. Yeah.
They just needed like that one moment to like ignite them. It's like almost like tinder and a flame. Like it's just like going so fast. And the bonies, they're not about this.
No, the bonies are like,
they're the undead government. Yeah, they're the
we don't like
undead
the
government. They're
heart.
like,
Yeah.
we're punishing this.
They're like, they don't want anyone to remember what boners are because no one will take them seriously again.
They
That's their real
come out their
motivation.
NPC mode. And they're
Yeah.
like, do I smell feelings?
Yeah. They're
Actually,
gonna
doesn't a Boney sniff M?
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
That's
also
comfy.
something else that's interesting is that the bonies, it's not like they are bloodlust. Like they
No.
don't
Yeah.
like they're not obsessed with humans or anything.
They're
So it's sort of
sniffing.
like
They don't want there to
they
be hope.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're just yeah, they're just sucking life out of every living being, whether it's undead or alive. Because yeah, they don't want to attack the humans to eat them and
Yeah.
turn them. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's really
It's
strange.
it's giving Sauron, it's giving Magnifico, it's
Yeah.
It's giving
giving
Dementors.
That's what it
It's literally
Dementor.
Yeah,
just
they looked like the Dementors, like the very first
Yeah.
time Dementors
if you take
were
if
on
you take a
screen,
cloak
you
off
know?
of a Dementor,
Yeah, that's
that's
what
what
it
they look
looks
like.
like.
Yeah, keep
Uh,
those cloaks on, honey.
It reminds me kind of No Heart from the Care Bears universe.
Oh
yeah, me
yeah,
too.
classic.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. It actually wasn't Dementor. It was the Care Bear movie.
Yeah.
He's the TV show.
Oh, sorry.
They're against feelings and caring.
I also think this is the second time you referenced Care Bears this month too. Uh,
The Care Bears truly just use mind control to solve all their problems, and I do stand by that. But so they're all gathering. So her dad's like, we gotta get the tanks from the cave underneath.
From the subway that no longer runs.
And he had a memory, or R had a memory earlier of Perry and Julie sneaking out to go
Yes.
see his dad. That's when this is actually such a good plan and payoff, right?
It
Where
is.
they sneak out, they have the trauma with his dad, so it explains their relationship. But then he knows a weak link in the city.
A little secret way to enter.
Yeah. So which is really negligent of Julie to let that slide. But so he sneaks in and
Doesn't he first meets up with M, and M is like, we
the
ought to
Bonies
feel
are mad.
things.
Yeah. So that's where we learn like there's something at stake, right? Like
Yeah.
he's like, they're like, you need to keep feeling, and we're all can keep feeling, and we need to stop the Bonies.
Yes. He's
Yeah.
like, Boney's after us. And R's like, no.
No. So he goes in, he sneaks in, has his little red hoodie. I miss when hoodies like that were in.
Okay,
Iconic.
but for a second, can we talk about the red hoodie? Where have I seen this before? E.T., Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah.
Tell me why I made the connection this morning that, you know who else wears an iconic red zip-up hoodie? Miguel from Coco, who is also a dead guy for most of the movie.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Huh.
Who wore it best?
Who wore it best? I mean, I think it's a red represents like heart, blood, life,
it does.
passion.
It represents like warmth.
And so I think it's also what makes this stand out aesthetically from Twilight or Beautiful Creatures, right? Is the aesthetic of like a bright red.
Yeah.
Because like I don't think anything red exists in Forks, Washington.
Except for like apple.
Yeah, except for the apple.
There's only purple.
Yeah, and definitely
Purple's
nothing
cool.
I guess there's
Purple
some
and cactus green.
There's a red lollipop in Gatlin, South Carolina.
Yep, a magical lollipop.
But it is an iconic hoodie, and I would wear it, and I do miss when I had a hoodie like that. I loved it. All right, so he sneaks in, and Julia is having girl talk with Nora, and Nora's like, I get it's hard to meet guys, but like, do you have feelings for a corpse?
All of her lines were like so Tumblr.
They were she was so like 2013 Tumblr, and I love that.
She had the messy bun, and she was like,
her outfit.
Your zombie boyfriend's here.
Yeah.
Like Nora.
But that was like so in at the time. So it's one of those things where it's like,
so and at the time I was like, I'm Nora.
I just want to be Nora.
I want to be Nora.
So he sneaks in, and they have the balcony scene, right? where
Mhm.
she's on the balcony and she sees him and he's trying to be like, the Bonies, they are mad and I was worried about you. And Nora's like, oh,
Yeah.
your zombie boyfriend. And they're like,
invite him in.
yeah, into your huge house, apartment
Yeah.
building.
Don't get me
Yeah.
started on the set.
And they're like, we need to like talk to your dad, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, how are we gonna get him through the
Yeah.
city? Because he looks dead. And they're like,
Makeover.
makeover. Second makeover montage of the month.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
they start playing because he's like, ew, boy, don't wear makeup. And
Oh
Yeah, I
no,
was like,
makeup.
ah, yes, gender stereotypes
oh,
still
how I missed the
exist.
2010.
I'm so glad that he remembered that.
He
Yeah.
literally was like, no makeup for R, and they were like,
Mhm.
yes, makeup
Yeah.
for R.
And they start playing Pretty Woman on the iPod.
Yeah.
The iPod.
Yes, the iPod. And it gets meta where she's like, what? That's funny. And we're like,
Yeah.
oh, Nora, you and your
Oh,
internet
Nora.
weirdness.
So Tumblr.
So
You know,
Tumblr.
I always said I wouldn't be an iPad parent, but sometimes when I want my cat to be busy, I open the front door so she can watch outside. And I'm like, I'm being an iPad parent.
That's so cute.
No, Nora definitely grew into being an iPod, like an iPad parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is she is
She's
like
a
if
millennial.
you had to be like who's a millennial, instantly I'm like Nora from Warm Bodies and people are like, what? And I'm like, she's
They're like, who's that?
generations are made up for marketing purposes. All right. They do a makeover, they put some makeup, they're like, he looks
He also gets a shower,
a
and we have a little
shower.
shower
Oh,
scene.
I was waiting for that shower for him because I was like, so many points were you in a confined space with him, Julie, and did he never stink?
Yeah, it is kind of strange.
But then
Also,
even Nora says he doesn't
he
smell
has some
like a zombie.
spots that
Yeah.
well, that's also something else is I wish they would have played with that. Like when she first meets him, she should have been like, you smell so bad. But then
Yeah.
when Nora meets him, she'd been like, he doesn't smell like a
Doesn't smell like
zombie
zombie,
because he's
yeah.
not a zombie anymore.
Ah,
you know?
yeah.
The one
They should have
consistent thing
played-
was his skin tone. Like he was getting more
Yes.
color.
They could
Yeah.
have done more with the
Yeah.
scent, like
The
they did in
scent,
Lisa
yeah.
Frankenstein. You know, they could have had been
Yeah.
like, oh my god. But
Yeah.
then like she's not just getting used to it, it's going away.
Yeah.
So that could have been really interesting. But when he's in the shower, there's like a spot, like spots on him that like it's getting clean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He's like losing his
It's-
scars.
yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it for him. I was like, clean my boy up.
Good boy.
Clean my zombie boyfriend.
Let me get to those scars beneath the beautiful. You know,
Okay.
Alicia Clara. Yeah. So they're like sneaking around to like get to her dad, and then they're like, she's like, Dad, you know, like I found a zombie saved me, and he's gonna be better. And he's like, zombies. He's a human. You're a mermaid. You know.
Yeah. It was real
I-
King Triton vibes.
Thought they were gonna bring back that eye scan thing again. And
Yeah.
that would have been so much more interesting. It would have been
Oh,
like
if they scanned him
it
and he
would have made
wasn't
it
infected.
so fast too. It would have been like,
Or if it was like inconclusive.
yes, like it would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah, that
She would have had
been.
actual evidence to show her dad, be like, no, look, like he's changing, and they would have had to make like that split-second decision.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have amped us up into the action
Of
better.
the third
because
act,
it's a
yeah.
it's a slow
Yeah.
Yeah.
third
To be
act.
fair, like in support of like John Malkovich, like your daughter comes to you, she gives you like a 30-second rundown on how she was saved by a zombie. The zombie is here. He's a person. Like you're the government. What are you gonna say? Like, go back home, Julie. But then he also, as the government, says, go home and get the gun that we've got and like protect yourself. She's like, I already got the gun. And I'm like, you only have one gun? It's the apocalypse.
Yeah, what kind of
Yeah.
libertarian are you?
Yeah, I thought that you were the government.
Yeah. Well, you know, usually though, when we say, oh, this script needed another draft, it's because things are missing. And it's not as much with this one that things are missing. It's just there are lots of little things that would have really like
Yeah.
amplified it.
yeah,
I don't-
amplified
yeah.
a punch that still lands, you know.
Yeah.
But so the dad's mad. He's like, one of these killed your mom, you know. And she's like, no, like he's a human. And he's like, R's like, I'm gonna convince him. And he's like, I'm gonna shoot him. And then Nora's like, we'll see about that. Like she has a gun.
Yeah.
And he's like, you won't shoot me. And she's like, yeah, I totally
Yeah, I
will.
totally will. I want to quickly go back to before they get to her dad, and ours like the soldier's there, and he's like, say something human, say something. He goes,
Yeah.
how are
Are
you?
you?
It's so awkward. I was like, that was well done. That was a funny little
No.
moment.
I think his narration was so funny. It really rounded him out because mostly he is just grunting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I loved his narration.
And
It was so funny and sweet.
it could have been a lot more twee or like a lot more like 2010s than
Yeah,
it
it
was.
aged
Like
well.
it had a little bit of that, but it was just very much like on his character thing, and it wasn't too hard like, well, let's see how I got here. You know,
Yeah,
like
no, it
he,
wasn't cringy like that.
he didn't ham it up.
No.
And you know, I
It was very
appreciate that.
deadpan comedy. A
Yeah.
lot of even just the scenes, deadpan. I
Yeah.
thought it worked really well.
They're running through warehouses. You know, it's the apocalypse, what's left? Warehouses.
I mean,
Or is
that's
it the
true.
subway? I don't know. It's not really
On the
There's
line.
also like a baseball
they'll enter a tent and
stadium.
then
Oh.
they're in
right?
Yeah.
There's
It's
the baseball stadium, right?
Yeah, there's a baseball stadium at one
Yeah.
point.
EXT
baseball
baseball
stadium.
EXT
Yeah.
warehouse.
Yeah, INT
Abandoned
tunnel.
warehouse. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're running around, and meanwhile, like the zombies have teamed up. M is like, we got to fight the bonies. So they're fighting the bonies, and the humans come to shoot the bonies. Bonies are killing them.
And the humans are reporting back to John Malkovich. We have corpses fighting bonies. And John Malkovich is like, I can't believe it.
They are being chased by bonies. The bonies are trying to destroy love. Classic no heart move. And they jump into the water. And this is made me think of two things. Okay, take a drink whenever I reference my baptism being canceled. But
I think we should take a drink every time that you bring up zombies from Disney Channel.
True. But I mean that's a podcast wide thing. But I'd be like, oh, he's gonna be like baptized and reborn. When they were falling into the water. And then I thought of when you said Romeo and Juliet, I was like, the line like arose by any other name, right? And he says, call me but love, and I will be new baptized.
Yes. I think water.
So this is a Christian allegory.
Yeah, or like in the context of like what like Romeo and Juliet, he's saying like baptism is where you got your name, right? So he's like, oh, just call me love, I'll have a new name. And so we're pulling the Christian imagery of baptism and rebirth with that Shakespeare quote of like, I will have a new, like, I will be love, I will be a new person, though he keeps his name. But, you know, like that kind of transformation.
Instead, he gets a concussion.
Yeah, because he lands on the water and it jolts him.
He hits his head on the base of the pool. And I was like, oh, he's dead now.
He's Miss Keisha
this movie's
level
over.
dead.
Miss Keisha level dead.
He was reborn. And they have another moment like with like the rebirth and water motif earlier where it's like raining and they're driving and they can't like put the hood up and they're like, it's just such a human experience.
To be wet.
Yeah. And then later on it's raining and he's like, now I'm cold.
Yeah, he feels cold for the first time.
It's raining in Hannah's background.
Yeah, I was like, I think it's this scene where he's like, oh, I feel cold for the first time in a long time. Yeah. So she pulls him out of the water because you know, he doesn't actually get a concussion. Even though I was like, oh, that guy's dead now. But you know what? He's cool. He's thriving, and then they're looking into each other's eyes.
He's like a Crayola shade lighter.
And
he's got like, a little bit more foundation.
He's not
I'm like, okay,
yet,
is he cured or is he still a zombie? Oh, they kiss. Oh, his eyes turn. Okay, now he's not a zombie. Oh, so she made out with a zombie.
But true love's kiss.
Yeah, she literally seals the deal and literally and figuratively brings him to life with her smooches.
In the most evanescent way possible. And true love's kiss, the most powerful force. You know. Yeah.
What is the timeline of this film?
Like a week, right?
Okay,
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay,
maybe even a little more.
So this guy ate her estranged boyfriend 5 days ago, and now she's making out with him in a pool.
I'm not saying she has the best judgment.
I'm not saying these I am saying these hoes ain't loyal, but
but I was literally just like, that is such a fast timeline.
It
And I was like, I know this is a fantasy. I know this is the
Yeah.
apocalypse, you know,
I do wish they'd
whatever.
gotten to know each other a little more before they made love, but
I don't know if I would have like wanted to be very obviously like, oh, it was like months, but I kind of wanted this to be more of like a road trip movie type thing where like there would have been a lot longer of a time period naturally without having to because it was quite literally just like she was gone for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
If we think of our romances, like throughout this entire podcast, have any been that long? Has the longest one truly been Beauty and the Beast, which is even like hard to really fully trace that timeline. But like, if you think of like, just like in my mind, I guess maybe The Last Unicorn had some time, you know, like if I'm like just scrolling
But
through our
this is
season.
also, but you think about it, she had a boyfriend that she was in love with, even though they were estranged.
Why is she in love with him anymore?
They
I
were
don't know.
estranged.
The love was gone, as they say in Muppet Christmas Carol.
Because he was rejecting her.
Yeah.
But then this guy ate her boyfriend. And she felt sad about that fact.
Yeah.
And guilty.
Yeah.
But then immediately she was kissing
you know
him.
what? You know how in high school, college, you know, when you're in a play, whenever you're in something that's like high, like every moment is like a million years. So I feel like in a high stakes environment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out the timeline.
The adrenaline was racing though.
Days.
Yeah.
Like 5 days this happened. So if you're waiting for
I
love,
think it's maybe more than that. I think it's more like 8 days because he at least holds her hostage for like
a few days. Yeah.
It's not just like 2.
I would say it's slightly under
5
2
to 8,
weeks.
not that much.
Love will find you. If you open your heart, love will find its way in.
Close your hearts, folks.
Yeah, because it's Valentine's Day tomorrow and I had to buy a gift. I'm actually super excited about the gift that I got, but he's in another room, so I can't say what it is. But it's an homage to this era. So
you got him Nicholas Hoult?
This movie.
I got him Nicholas Hoult.
Wow, that's nice.
So, but he shoots him and he bleeds.
John Malkovich.
Shoots
all of a sudden you're like, Rafa
pronouns.
shoots Nicholas Hoult in your house tomorrow on Valentine's Day.
And he's finally human.
Nicholas Hoult comes out.
And Nicholas Hoult is finally human. Yes. So John Malkovich shoots him because, you know, and she's standing there defending him like, no, like,
don't shoot him.
Fine.
Don't shoot him.
But yeah, and he's like bleeding in the water.
And they're like, zombies don't bleed, because earlier he's like, they don't dream and they don't bleed.
Yes. Yeah. And I thought like that was a good callback. That's what I wanted with the smell. Was like a little bit more of a callback, but
like you read this script as an intern and you're like, you pass it on.
Serviceable. Yeah.
You pass it on. Because I mean, I remember reading some scripts that I was like,
I passed too many, but I would have passed this one.
Yeah, he bleeds, and then John Malkovich is like, "Oh shit, okay, I almost just killed a human being."
Yeah. So he I was surprised. I thought he was gonna go down with the tanks in the tunnel, but because he doesn't have a ship, but he is rethinking. He is not who's the I will go down with this ship. I won't put my hands up and surrender. He's not that song. Dido.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Queen of Carthage, who dated Aeneas. Yes.
Yes, of course.
So it's a new future. It's a brand new day. It's gonna be their year, as I would say in the Zombies franchise. So it's sunny. There's the walls are coming down. They got rid of the bonies. People are playing catch. The corpses are.
They're learning how to play catch again.
Yeah, and as we know from Twilight, nothing makes you more human and alive than baseball. So they're waking, and all the like Marcus has a little bit of a meet cute. M is where she's like, what's his name?
Umbrella.
Yeah.
Like what's
everyone
his name?
In society is sort of like accepting the corpses as like they're transitioning back into society. And so I think does he say he's like, I have zombie fingers?
Yeah.
To open it. I was like, did he just say I have zombie fingers? And she's like, oh, that's okay. You know, she accepts that.
Maybe she was a zombie.
That's how I know this is a fantasy movie. There's no way that this acceptance would happen like this.
Yeah.
But that he's
Right.
smooth. He's like zombie fingers, and he's like, my name's Marcus.
He's like,
and then
Marcus.
and he like holds the umbrella and she's like, no, I'm fine. And then he's like, yeah, you're really pretty. And then he goes, okay, but this is where you say I'm pretty too.
You
So
gotta root for
smooth.
him. He was so cute.
He was, it's honestly kind of rare in a movie you get a non-toxic best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's way
All of
better.
his advice was great.
Yeah.
It was mostly grunts, not
But
controversial.
still, I mean, that was that talking horse in Pinocchio, true story. He gave trash advice.
And that talking horse ended up being his dad for a while too.
Yeah. Tybalt.
No.
Anyway.
So it's the end, like they're looking at the brand new world, and he is making new memories, and she's like, do you remember your name? He's like, no, R is good.
Yeah.
And they're exhumed. The world is exhumed.
They're exhumed.
Yeah. Nora becomes a nurse. Did we say that?
Yeah. She feels the heartbeats.
She hears the heartbeats on the zombie guy. Yeah. Sorry, the ex-corpse.
Ex-corpse. This is what I
don't
love.
want to use a slur like witch. It should be caster.
It's funny they couldn't come up with something like better than corpses to call the zombies, because they're obviously not corpses.
Well, okay, so the idea of a zombie exists in this universe because they have the movie they reference. But yeah, they call them corpses.
It's like, that's a medical term. You just call them zombies.
It's like,
they didn't want to mix it up with the Cranberry song.
Yeah. I mean, very confusing. Everyone in this universe famously loves the Cranberries.
As they should.
But yeah, it is, because like bony is okay. I get it; they're very bony, but the corpse is like, honestly, this feels more like Walking Dead makes more sense, because if they're dead and they're walking, but a corpse does not move. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we have to ask Isaac Marion about that, the author.
Yeah.
Isaac, if you're listening to this,
join us
right in.
Comment below.
Comment below, Isaac.
So yeah, that is Warm Bodies. Who is our protagonist, and do we root for them? Obviously, we talked about how we love R. We love his hope, and I do love. I think it's why
green flag.
He is,
although he's
except for that peak, But other than that,
it's green.
It's green. I love a man who's into backs. I think something I like about this movie compared to a lot of zombie fiction is like hope is so central.
Yeah.
And I loved that.
Yeah.
And do we ship R and Julie?
I do. I
guess
do.
so.
Yeah. I think she was really sweet to him. It's like, she's obviously the reason that he starts to turn human. So like, how could I not? I don't ship him with anyone else.
Yeah.
And it's also like, it's not like there's anything like toxic. I mean,
there's nothing
toxic about the timeline, but I mean about their like relationship, like talking about like Twilight and stuff like that. Like obviously there's some serious baggage, but like he didn't hurt her. She didn't hurt him. They're
very open and honest with each other.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, I mean,
he doesn't feed off her brains. He feeds off her love.
Yeah. Yeah. And she has hope too, right? Like she's the one who's like, there's a cure. So they're kindred spirits.
Like the reason that he goes for her is because like she ignites something in him. And he's like, I want to be like a human again. Like this is the woman that makes me want to be a human again. But I think she has a few points where she also like is looking at him like, I think that you have more heart than all the people I know in the city that my father runs.
Yeah.
And she sees something in him that reminds her of humanity and like what it used to be. And that's why she falls for him. It's pretty fast in a montage.
Yeah.
She's immediately like not upset anymore about the fact that she's spending time with a zombie in a plane.
But it is true that the humans,
it's still kind of cute.
The humans in this world have lost their humanity, right? So like the whole world's being exhumed. It's not the zombies just becoming human. It's the humans being human again.
Yeah, because they have to work with the zombies. They have to love the zombies back.
They have to love life. They have to live, laugh, love again.
They have to live, laugh, love again.
To eat, pray, love. And usually we talk about our antagonists, but I feel like in this month the antagonists have been like such a blip.
Yeah.
Like
If the
her.
antagonist is John Malkovich, I'll say it again. He needed some more screen time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he needed a stronger desire because like it was just very muddled. But then again, I'm also like, he's just the stand-in, like
But also,
obligatory dad, you
he
know?
was John Malkovich. Like in 2013, we
yeah.
cast John
Yeah.
Malkovich as the dad who's got
He's
like
just here for the
10
paycheck.
minutes of
He's not here for John
what?
Malkoviching, you know? Like
Yeah.
I
What were
don't
we
think he's been
thinking?
here to John Malkovich in a long time either. So,
Truly, this genre has a thing with dads.
Yeah.
Because
Well, it's
mhm.
Romeo and Juliet. Yeah.
was our best dad of this month Charlie from
Yes.
Twilight?
Charlie is the
He's a
best dad.
great dad.
I
He's a
do love
great
Charlie. I
dad.
do love.
Charlie
He's a,
gets better.
yeah. He's
He
probably my
grows.
favorite character.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess our big question was that your fantasy, Laurel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was my
obviously. I'm
fantasy.
like, if Laurel was
I
like,
want a zombie
no.
Yes.
boyfriend.
Yes, that was my fantasy. Absolutely. That was my fantasy. Literally,
Yeah.
at the time, I wanted a zombie boyfriend to crawl to my door. And don't, Connor's laughing at me. And you know, I think Nicholas Hoult was the perfect guy to play.
With any other person in this role, I think this could have been really cheesy, like in not a
Yeah.
good way, because this is like just cheesy enough. Yeah,
He
he
played
does a
this
really
such a
good
straight
job.
man. Yeah.
When I came into this, I was kind of like, I don't know if I like this movie all that much, but like talking about it is like it's very different from weirdly enough all the other supernatural romance that we watched this month. It's focused on hope and regaining humanity, and like that's the love, not so much
Yeah.
just romance love. It's like
Yeah.
human love and connection. And so, you know what? Yeah, it is my fantasy then because
Yeah,
because it's
Hannah.
not necessarily about human zombie romance anymore. It's more than that for sure.
It is
Yeah.
about love.
I
Mhm.
love. I'm gonna say yes, because so in my notes, Hannah can see I wrote no, but maybe it was good. Because I was like, this was a good movie. But now, like this whole hope and humanity thing, Laurel, you sold us on this movie. That it's not like we
Yeah.
thought it was bad, but I'm like, yeah, this is my fantasy.
I was
It's
gonna
such
write
a
it
good
off
movie.
more, and I was like, actually,
Uh,
no. Like, it is, especially in the context of this month that we did. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
Well, I win then.
You did. You're the first
I
winner
win.
of the podcast.
I win the podcast. I convinced you both that this was your fantasy. And now we're all going to message Nicholas Hoult. We're going to get him in for another. He's going to give us is this his fantasy? He's going to say yes.
Yeah.
Nicholas Hoult, we know you're listening. We know you're a fan. I'm sorry about what I said about you playing a good zombie. But write in.
I did.
Was this your fantasy?
So this was quite Supernatural Romance Month was quite a journey
Mm-hmm.
of couples. And I'm gonna ask Hannah who your favorite couple was. I have mine, so you have to have a moment to think.
Uh-huh.
I'm putting R and Julie as my favorite couple of the month.
Mm.
I'm following it with Lisa and her corpse. The
Uh-huh.
corpse of Cole Sprouse.
Yeah, what was his name? Did he not have a name?
He didn't have a name.
Huh, okay.
Then Ethan and Lena of Beautiful Creatures. They have chemistry. And then shocking no one, Edward and Bella.
Obligatory entry on the list.
Yes. My least favorite
Mm.
couple. I guess if we had to add another least favorite one, maybe Jasper and Alice because he's a Confederate, but
Right. They glossed over that.
yeah.
Okay, so I have to focus on just the movies because the book couples are very different.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think I have to agree because R and Julie, we talked about it. They have a lot in common. They have stuff in common, actually.
Yeah.
It's not even just a lot. They just have stuff in common. These other
Yeah.
couples
They're
don't.
also friends.
And
So
they're
much.
also friends. Lisa and the corpse, like, yeah, I feel like I would rank the rest of them on sort of the Ethan and Lena, and Lisa and the corpse on the same level, and then Edward and Bella,
Yeah.
because I think that both Ethan and Lena and Lisa and her corpse could have more, and we talked about that, but they don't
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Edward and Bella, like, they're just not a good couple. And
No.
I don't feel romantic feelings about them
No,
at all.
if you recall, I compared them to Liesel and the Nazi. Instead of
No.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah. That was Supernatural Romance Month. What a journey.
yes.
What a time.
Unexpected journey.
Unexpected journey, especially to go from like it's like Percy Jackson and Supernatural Romance Month. Kind of our eras happening a little concurrently. We're kind of Taylor Swifting it. And
Eras.
but our next era is one that's been many a month in the making, you know.
Yes.
And you can see from my mug.
Oh, you're teasing it. I had to cut
teasing
it
it.
from the other episode in which it was supposed to appear. Yes.
We are talking about the one who's really that bitch of the princess community, the most widespread fairy tale in the world. That girl, the one who has a million movies. We're talking about Cinderella. March is Cinderella month. It was supposed to be August and September in honor of my birthday, which was Cinderella themed. I had a Cinderella themed birthday. But Cinderella would support workers on strike, and so would we. So
yep, and we did.
We did.
And she is happy that we waited.
Yeah, it's what she would want. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll ask her next time we're at Disneyland.
I say ask her next time you're at the park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cinderella.
How do you feel about this? So we're talking about Cinderella, and we are starting with the 1950 animated classic Cinderella, and our guest is Bethany Finger of Prince Kai Fan Pod, Marissa Meyer Fan Podcast,
and
author
of More Than Life, which as of recording came out today, but as of release came out 2 weeks ago. So you'll actually listen to her interview that we did. Cullen did an amazing job, and she did a fantastic job taking us through her process and the inspiration for the book. So you'll hear a little bit about her, and then catch us next week for her on Cinderella.
Yeah. We had so much fun. This is going to be such a fun series. It's been a while since we've really been in fairy tale land, going over fairy tale adaptations. So I'm excited to be back, and we're going to cover some iconic films.
Yes.
Truly. But for now, Laurel, thank you so much for helping us end Supernatural Romance Month on such a high note.
Thanks for the win. I feel really honored to have been included in this episode as your teenage little sister for this teenage romance. I had so much fun.
Is there anything you want to plug?
No, me?
Yeah.
I plug Nicholas Hoult.
Love that.
Another movie. I know it was recent, that he was in one, but
he needs another one.
More movies, wench. Movie wench. Make more movies for Nicholas.
Yes. Well, you can follow Not My Fantasy on Instagram and TikTok at Not My Fantasy Pod. And if you are watching on YouTube, hello. You can
smash that like button.
Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you get notified anytime we drop a new video. And also, if you are over on iTunes, Spotify, you can leave us a review, give us 5 stars, let us know what you love about the podcast. And you know what? Over on YouTube, if you saw this movie,
comment below and say smash or pass on Zombie Nicholas Hoult.
And if you say pass, I'll comment why you're wrong.
Yes. But also your favorite couple of Supernatural Romance Month, and then maybe movies. I feel like we're gonna visit Supernatural Romance again next year.
Absolutely.
So movies that you want us to cover, I have some ideas, some whisperings in my noggin. So unless Nicholas Hoult eats my brain and then takes all my memories, they'll be ready for next February. But comment below with some movies you think would be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Cinderella. We'll see you next week.
See you at the ball.
Bye.
Bye.